So I'm delighted now to introduce the first panel of the day. It's moderated by the brilliant Mikhail Tegels, who's ExxonMobil Product Solutions, Transformation and Innovation Product Manager. And the session is going to be on AI, accelerating AI for sustainable plant operations and asset performance management, an insight into autonomous operations. So I'm going to hand you over to Michel. Thank you.
Hey, Adam, thank you very much for that introduction. So good day, everybody. Some in the morning, some in the afternoon. Michel Tegels here, ExxonMobil. I have the great role to facilitate the panel, and pretty easy from that perspective, because the topic of the panel, accelerating AI for sustainable plant operations, getting an insight on that road that we have in the downstream towards autonomous operation is quite something. On the panel that we have, I hope technology works here. We have there we have the beautiful panel. I'll let everybody one at a time introduce themselves. And in the introductions, we'll keep it short. Our name, the company we present, and the role, the responsibility we have in that company, so that we then flow and we'll zoom in the actual discussion. Sophia, I'll start with yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sofia Silvestre. I work as an AI delivery manager at Galp. For those of you that don't know Galp is a Portuguese oil and gas company, and my role here is to lead the team responsible for develop, deploy, and maintain AI solutions across Galp's business units. And yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here with such great professionals and have this discussion around accelerating AI in this sector.
Sophia, thank you. Over to Vinay.
Sorry, once again. So my name is Vinay, and I'm currently based in Abu Dhabi. I have been working in the energy sector for almost 15 years with national oil companies, most recently with ADNOC. In the downstream, the company is called Borouge. And apart from that, I've worked in the EPC sector as well. And I basically work in the intersection of the operations and commercial part, mostly into procurement and supply chain. And my role is basically to drive excellence within the supply chain.
Vinay, thank you, and welcome again. Achilles.
Hello, I'm Achilles Georgiu. I'm the head of data AI and innovation team at MOL Group. Although my name is Greek, I'm joining from Budapest, Hungary. It's a great pleasure to be with you guys.
Thank you. Thomas.
Yeah, I come from Linde, and I run a business unit that helps operators to improve their operation using closed loop AI, closed loop control, as well as real-time optimization using AI. And for the last 4 years, we have now 7 plants in operation where this works. And we're now embarking into other types of technologies. So we're working on the first cracker with that as well.
Thomas, thank you. Let's stick with you for a couple of seconds here on that mission that you run with Linde and that closed loop control. Can you help us to some insights to what is it you try to achieve, and where does AI make a difference in this mission versus what we had before?
Yeah. I mean, let's say we as Linde, we operate about 1,000 plants across 100 countries. And as you know, our raw material is for free, it's air. And that means, let's say, the differentiator to any competition is an efficient way of producing our product. And so far we were using a lot of the classical vendors, so Aspen and others. And what we saw, we have 2 problems here. So problem number 1 is we have very volatile market conditions, and we operate plants in different scenarios quite frequently. And we were not able to keep pace with the changes of the market or the way how we wanted to operate our assets. with the classical advanced process control because it required a lot of manual work. And therefore, basically, our product yields and the profitability of our sites went down. And we were using or looking for something that helps us to be able to adapt fast to different market conditions or changing of equipment without the need to dramatically increase our workforce. And the second problem was that, let's say, experienced operators and advanced process control engineers become more and more a scarce resource. And so the question was, how can we make more out of the, let's say, decreasing number of qualified people? And again, we were using AI for that.
Thomas, thank you very much. So that within the asset, you had clear drivers, changing dynamics in your market, and changing demographics of the organization that you have, and the pressures from that, which get you to these solutions. Let's allow Vinay to give us the Borouge complementary image of that, because it goes much broader than the asset itself.
Sure. So my perspective is purely from a commercial or a procurement and supply chain perspective here. And here, I mean, as everyone across the world is trying to basically uh, implement AI systems and look at more towards autonomous systems, I think my role and what basically people around me are basically doing here is to kind of align the external and the internal worlds together. When I basically mean external, I'm basically talking about the markets from the supply side for the raw materials, for the feedstock, for basically more importantly the suppliers for some critical materials that are very critical to our processes, and then balancing the risk. Uh, uh, I'm trying to balance the risk in a digital and autonomous way, and that is basically the external part. Internally, basically we are trying to align the data coming from the systems, the plants, and then that has to be aligned with our ERP systems, with our procurement systems, with our supply chain systems. So that's the challenge that we are currently facing, as we are all targeting towards getting autonomous and using AI in the system. So preliminary, this is the thing that we are currently working on, aligning the internal and external scenarios.
Vinay, thank you. And what we hear here, at the end of the day, it's solid ground under our feet. It's getting to stable, adaptable operations in a very efficient way, and integrating the asset in a supply chain in a very dynamic environment. Not trying to be funny, but this has been this paradigm, this problem to be solved, has been with us for a couple of decades, for the whole team here. How do we think differently about this problem to be solved, linking it to AI? What differentiates us today versus solving this problem 5-10 years ago?
I mean, Michelle, I would imagine, at least on the Linde side, we were trying exactly the same things 10 years ago. We were playing with AI and other things, but what we see right now is that the technology has evolved to a point where it's usable, where it's robust, and where we can use it as a reliable tool. So we can solve problems that theoretically we could have been able to solve 10 years ago, but there was not the tools, or there was not the computing power, or not the infrastructure to do that so that it works 24/7 in a robust industrial environment.
If I may add here, again, as Thomas mentioned, I think the key drivers still remain the same, whether it is AI or whether it is not AI. The key drivers, at least from a commercial perspective, is always cost and margins. I mean, either you use your existing systems or you bring in AI to basically improve your margins and costs. You basically try to optimize your risks. And finally, you see how efficient you can make your processes. So I mean, as we are moving towards more autonomy, I think the value drivers still remain the same. It's just that how you basically use the AI systems models, how you basically use your data, how you clean your data, how you build a unified data model such that the entire value chain, the entire supply chain is now connected through a unified model, and you basically have better data-driven metrics and better data and visibility across the supply chain to basically connect these and make better decision. And I think that's the difference between what would be 10 years back and what is now. So you have more data, and so finally, it all comes down to how you use this data and how you make smart decisions out of it.
Yeah, I would like to add a note on that, on the data points, because I think that's the real shift of the paradigm right now. Because I think all across the organizations we are seeing data as a living asset right now, not something that is just locked up in different silos, but something that is flowing across the organization and is being used by different teams and is allowing us to reach to these results with AI. And now we have results so to rely on.
Fully agree.
Which is
Achilles,
around
I see.
data. Yeah,
Yes,
definitely. Data.
go
Without
ahead.
data, you cannot do anything, and that's one of the biggest challenges I see across this domain. That we personally also we have been using a lot of today AI core technologies, but also disciplines like machine learning for decades. And obviously, AI brings something new on the stage. So what I say usually is that people have needs or desires, or business partners have needs or problems. But what is new that comes on the stage is that with AI we can explore the desires which sometimes the business cannot even formulate at this stage. The AI is something new which we can bring on the table. Until now, we had a lot of technologies which we can reach up to the machine learning level. And now with AI, we can help business decision makers to take kind of more precise decisions based on the technology with the help of technology. At the end of the day, AI it's only can be kind of support of an educated guess. So we have more insights, more wisdom in a sense, but without having proper data behind it, it's useless. So every AI technology is relying purely on data. One of our biggest kind of scope and vision for the next year is how we can become secure the data-driven business decision, and how to move forward from data-driven to become even more AI-driven decision making. And that's a very great challenge and opportunity for us.
100% agree to that point, Achilles. When zooming in on that data challenge a bit more, data comes from applications that we're running and from processes that we run on those applications. If you think of AI getting to real differentiating solutions, we need to be able to integrate across the different data sets. Achilles, how do you handle that in Mo?
I was in several conferences, for example, when we, like you mentioned, like digital twin, for example, where you have to have, in order to have a proper digital twin in place, you need to have a deep and very well structured data. And this is always a great challenge. And we do have, for example, isolated digital twin solutions, but it's very hard to have an end-to-end digital twin solution, because there can be like black holes or bottlenecks in the data. It's very hard to have an end-to-end coverage of data. And this is we have been discussing it before earlier. But how to manage that if anything you do, any model you try to feed data with for the AI will not be accurate enough, because it cannot reach above 80% accuracy. So this is definitely one of the biggest challenges. So in order to be able to apply AI technology on top, you need to clean the data. You need to do your homework with the data to have good enough data in order to feed AI and to make sure that they can act accordingly, or at least when you have a digital twin, you can have a proper copy of the reality in a digital environment. And in the banking sector, for example, can be much easier, but in this industry, sometimes it's more difficult, because they still have big black holes and gaps. And filling up those gaps, I believe that's one of the biggest challenges we are looking forward.
Good that you make that reference to banking sector. Also discrete manufacturing and many other industries are ahead of us. One of the things that we see there, and I'll switch over to Sophia, is on top of the technicalities and on top of the data itself, we also need to enable our organization to be able to make get the value from these technologies.
Yeah, I think that's a great responsibility that we have, and specifically our team here at Galp, in order to have the right adoption of these types of solutions. We must not rely just only on technology, because we know that we have the technology. Sometimes we just don't have the right technology. At least we have the algorithms, but do we have the right data architecture, for example, the right interoperability, real-time analytics to build these types of solutions to be adopted by our operating teams? But also we must rely on other aspects like governance. For instance, we must govern our processes to organize for the success of these solutions across the organizations. For example, to have a cross-functional AI operating model between all the data teams. We must have, and that we establish at the beginning of every project that we develop. We must have clear ownership about all the decisions, because when an AI system makes some recommendation, what are the actions, what will be the governance and the accountability around that action. Also, something that is really important around the governance is to have a clear prioritization about your use cases on business value, and not just build AI solutions just for the sake of it, because that is something that is really happening right now. And of course, to have the right guidelines for developing a model life cycle, because we know that these solutions fail, and we must monitor them long term in order to have the right performance long term. And people, of course, that's the final aspect that I wanted to mention, because people must be the center of it all, and we must worry about culture right from the day one when we start any type of development. We must upskill our teams, build the trust around these solutions through the transparency to explainability of the algorithms that we are using. Have this, and that is something that's I would want to see more, that having a culture of experimentation, uh, letting our teams test and fail in safety environments, and having like a leadership, right, executive leadership, sponsorship across the organization around this vision. So I mean, technology, we have it, but we must have the right architecture to develop, and the right governance, and people in the center of it all to have the right adoption.
So, Sophia, great. You touched on many aspects of a successful adoption plan. And I'm looking at the questions answers here in the channel. And Thomas, there's already a question on top of mind of our audience here, is linking back to a point made by Sophia here, is we need to make sure that we have a successful outcome, but we also need to have experimentation, and models deteriorate over time. So the question, Thomas, you're getting here is, are you operating in a closed loop? And then I believe you are. Using RL, how do you handle model drift?
Yeah, so answer number one is we handle closed loop, and we operate critical infrastructure with that, which means we have quite high requirements in terms of robustness of the solution. I mean, it took us 6 years to develop that, and 4 years was about preventing that the AI does crazy things or drifts. So what is the main part of where we put our mind into is, if we retrain the model, and basically we do that on the fly, to adapt it to new conditions based on the experience that we have now from operations. And I think there were two main things. So the one thing is to make sure that the training data that we use to train the control is properly is valid, so that we take out things where we have an operating condition that we didn't want, because basically a piece of equipment failed, for example, and we take out things that are invalid. The other part where we put a lot of effort in is testing the model. So what we would do is we would clean the data quite comprehensively, then we would train the model, and then we would run a whole series of different scenario and performance tests on previous operating data to see what would have the model done in situations that we have experienced. And only then, when the performance is better and there is no doubt that it performs in a robust fashion, then we would release the model to be able to actually be released for the part that controls the plant. And as I said, I'm just coming out of a discussion is how do we identify model drift, and how do we then trigger a retraining of the model to compensate for that, be it caused by problems with the measurements, let's say an analyzer that is drifting, be it caused by fouling of a heat exchanger, or be it caused by an erratic scenario, let's say a different feed for the cracker, which has never been tried before.
It's funny though that Sophia mentioned that human part is the most important, and Thomas is so much in the tangible things, and I fully agree with Sophia that if you don't have the awareness of the people and sensitize about AI, that's anything you do on this, it's like it's very hard to show value out of it. So AI is not the ketchup you need to throw on everything. So I think the most important thing is to get the people on board. So get the people understand how AI can contribute, what value it can create, what are the limitations and obstacles of AI, because it cannot solve everything. But on the other side, if you sensitivize the people, you onboard them, they can write better emails, do whatever they do on basic daily things easier, better. But that doesn't show value. And that's the business side. We'll ask, okay, Achilles, and what is the value we generate out of it? I have nice fancy emails, but what is the value that comes? And this is a journey. So it's not one step activity. First, you sensitivize the people. You have the people with you. They understand the capabilities. Then you do, as Sophia, I fully agree. We need to experiment. We need to explore the infinite possibilities from AI. And when we find something and it seems to be work, then we need to adapt it. We need to localize it to our environment. And the real value creation will come once we are in the position where we be able to scale it. So where we can scale it to a volume when they can bring resources and results out of it. And that's the journey we do. First, we need to touch the human part, to get the people on board, find the good solutions where we can adapt and scale, so start creating the value. The ultimate goal is to reach to a point where we can find areas within the organization where we can use technology to digitally reinvent the way how we do business. And I think that's still very far. If you ask me on long journey, this is still a couple of years ahead, because we need to go step by step. You cannot jump from step 1 to step 3 or 5.
Achilles, maybe an additional aspect on the human aspect, which was quite surprising to me, is I think we have a kind of the opposite problem. So the AI proves to be useful and generates business value every day. And now all of a sudden, and I'm just coming out of a meeting because we face fierce pushback from advanced process control engineers who are worried about their job, because they see, or they can see, is if what we do right now, which works well, if we scale it, their job might be devaluated, or they might even lose their job. And I think for the first time, at least in my career, and which is about 35 years now, what I see is that we have white-collar employees who are worried that a new technology will cost them their job or the appreciation of an organization.
Thomas, I kind of disagree with you. Obviously, you have this fear, but it's not AI, it's not replacing people, but those who we use AI, we replace those who don't. So that's a different discussion. So, and it's hard to change something when it works well. I was at a conference and the priest was mentioning this, and I really like this quote, although that it was coming totally off track, that in order the change to happen, you need to let go something which is good. So something how we do it today might not be fitting in the future, but we don't have any pressure because things are working as business as usual. So then it means that we might skip the opportunity to use the technology in a level to transform the way how we do business and to get more efficient, more enhanced, and whatever. And this is I believe the trigger. So we need to find the areas where AI can really bring value, because in most of the cases might not. And the stories you mentioned are still for me mostly in the transitional from data, how you can do machine learning, analytics, and all the things. These are still very traditional things. And you mentioned that we use this for decades already, so this is not new. But we have new technologies which are popping up like geysers. And I won't say fear, I'm not fear, I'm fearless. My belief is that these geysers, because, and Sophia, you mentioned they are mature enough now, they will, in a multimodal AI technologies, they will go through the business like tsunamis. And this is the moment we need to be very cautious how and which technologies to adapt, on what level, and to make sure that they do deliver the value we expect from it.
But I think,
I could
Achilles, what is a key to enable this transformation is, I think we need to find a new place for the people that we have in our current organization, that they find a place where they will be, because what we are experiencing is they are worried that kind of their place will go away, and therefore they're opposing it, which basically prevents the scale up of the, how to say, more modern things.
I quickly want to touch upon
Go ahead, Vinay.
So Thomas basically mentioned about the fear of job security that obviously people from operations and equally from the commercial and administrative side are facing. But I think there's a bigger discussion around the culture itself, and there is which is what we are practically seeing is how people are actually trusting, how much are people trusting AI and AI based systems and outcomes, and then how are they basically trying to use it to make business decisions. Now, I've at least faced from my experience that on the operation side, you see process engineers, you see basically technicians, operators uh, trusting AI more than on the commercial side. For example, let's say it's a $1 million purchase order. There is no way that a set of senior executives will approve an order through an AI. Let's say an AI recommends, your purchase order is worth $1 million. No, there's no way they're going to approve it. It has to go through, 3 or 4 levels of approval. Even today, even once you have robust systems that give you at least 80 to 90% of confidence level, in spite of that, the approvals have to go manually. So I think it's more a cultural shift, and so it has basically to do with the top management. It has to be a top-down approach, wherein the management itself pushes that agenda so that the entire organization kind of adopts it. Yeah, so that's what I basically see from my experience.
Vinay, I like that, and you're breaking it out into two aspects. One is getting management and the board and the funding all approved. The other one is to get the organization, the practitioners and the experts on board. And I was scanning some of the questions here in the chat, and one of them is, and Sophia, I think you'll have some experience out of Galp to share on that. As we progress this journey, how do we measure that the teams are effective in making use of those tools? How do we measure how do we stay on top of this adoption, making sure that we're actively driving to success?
Yeah, by the beginning of the process, something that I've talked a bit about was to have clear prioritization of our use cases based on business value, and we define the benefits before putting these solutions in production, and define what are the adoption rates, for example, through clicking, through process that they run in these solutions, and we continuously monitor those indicators, and we actually try to publicly speak about them in the organization, so that we have like a shared knowledge of what are the adoption rates of these types of solutions. Because and we've talked a bit about it before. People are scared about it, and we have people that are more resistant about these topics of AI. But something that is really shifting is to talk more about it, and that is shifting a lot the mindset here at Galp, because we have like a team that is only responsible for AI culture in the organization. And so they work with the people across the organization, and they share these numbers. And so I think we can measure it and we can monitor it, and it is very important to share.
Thanks, Sophia. We're getting also some questions around the data and the maturity of data. And for the audience, questions, if I group a few of them. One is, do we feel that the quality and the maturity of the data that we have, do we feel ready where we are and we can deploy? Or do we think it's years of data cleanup and contextualization ahead of us? And then, even though the session today is future downstream, we're getting an upstream question. We'll be flexible and allow that in. Is do we see a big differentiation in potentially isolation of upstream data, as well as maybe more challenges in getting connectivity to the data? So how does our group, how do we feel about readiness of data in the upstream, and maybe also if there is links to the downstream? Who wants to go first?
I think I can talk about this a bit. So I mean, there are different levels of data and different places from where your data is coming in. Now, let's just consider the example of, let's say, asset maintenance and reliability, and you have a lot of focus on predictive maintenance, which is going on these days, right? Uh, so as far as your sensors give you the exact data, tell you, let's say a critical pump is going to fail in a week's time, it monitors the vibration on the pump, and you have that predictive maintenance system telling you, this is the spare you need to order. Now, again, from a supply chain perspective, right, that loop is not closed until you have, from your supply chain side, the exact uh, roadmap for how the spare needs to be basically uh, procured and be delivered within the time you before the pump fails. So I think that part, which is basically now from the supply chain end, has to be streamlined. So you have to equally streamline your systems on the supply chain side as to your ordering, your material master, your vendor data. How have you segmented your vendors, the risk, the cost, all of that ideally, typically in real time, so that once the you get these signals from your predictive maintenance system, that can then be correlated with your supply chain signals, and then the entire loop can be done autonomously. So again, from the supply chain side, uh, factors also have to be taken into consideration while kind of building the entire end-to-end system.
Like that.
Also,
Do we have it? Go ahead.
sorry, Mitchell. So around data maturity, of course, it depends a lot on the data that we're talking about, if it's structured data and structured data. But actually here we try to, we have a centralized data and that is working very well for us. So we have the governance and try to catalog all our data and have governance around our data and have real ownership with data stewards of each type of data set. And it's a centralized data that everyone has access and can require access to use each type of data set. Of course, we also have some challenges because we are dealing a lot right now, and specifically with this Gen AI, we must evolve to a different kind of data because we are talking about processing data in different types in vector databases, for example. So we are evolving our data, but that is something that is being very helpful for us because we have alarmistic around data quality in this centralized data hub. So it is something that really is making us extracting more value from the data of our organization.
So, Sophia, at Gal, by bringing the data in a central environment, and you mentioned governance, you mentioned ownership, and I understand and I recognize a lot of the elements you have here. How does the rest of the team here, how do we think about, at the end of the day, it's controlling quality of our data, controlling integrity of our data. How do we think about that when we are exposed to accelerating innovation cycles? More and more, we see great new opportunities, plug in new things, different uses of data. How can a global central governance stay on the wave and not be washed down?
Yeah, maybe a thought from, I think it's a 15-year journey that Linde has done, because I think we had a very visionary CEO who came from BMW and was appalled about the bad way how Linde was operating. And basically he installed, let's say, a way of collecting relevant data at a point where he didn't know what we would be wanting to do in the future. And what I can see is, I mean, this has happened 15 years ago. And now I think for this whole AI journey, it's quite beneficial because we have data about each and everything. We have 10 years history of that. And I think if you have an organization who can think about, how do I historize and store the data in a way that multiple applications are possible in the future, you don't have to worry about how do you use it. Because what I can see is a system that we implemented 15 years ago is actually quite well suited to trigger all kinds of new things that come up every day today, because the structures are clear, the governance is clear, and the quality of ingestion into the common system is quite good.
Achilles, how are you handling this challenge?
So I will present afterwards a bit. So I have also there at kind of the traditional old, we had a pyramid when we said we need to have data on the top of data, and still we don't know anything. So we just have the data. So in order to know something, we need to convert the information. At least we know what we are doing. Then we get some knowledge, know how we do, and know having the vision on top is know why we are doing it. And this is very old. So it was like 30 years old picture which I have in mind. What we do now with my team is like let's support each layer of it. So you can not only touch the top, which when you cause what the AI can do, by how AI can contribute, but we start from the bottom. So we have data engineering to collect, clean, store the data properly, to have a very good overview. Then we have data analytics. We do have skills how to present, show, create dashboards, create put business intelligence on top. So in order to have some access to information, and from the data, when we learn enough, then we can have the knowledge. There we use conditional already, machine learning, and so on. So if we have good structure on these three layers, then our AI can come on top of it. I'm not so much worried on this because with the technologies, we can extrapolate insights from any source of data. Sometimes the question is, do we have data? So it's not only how to protect and structure and so on, but have we datafied all aspects and all steps of the processes we are working on? And sometimes that can be a challenge. So there I see the black hole. So it's not, we don't even have the data sometimes in some cases. Thank God it's rare, but I was discussing in another conference, can be the common, because if you have at least one big how to say, black hole, then your whole model will not be able to work. How you can fix that part, that's the challenge.
I like that very much. Thank you, Achilles, and all the elements here. Let's switch gears. One of the questions, or a few of the questions in Q&A that we're getting, are in the area of responsible AI, and we're all under pressure. Those who were at the Namur conference 2 weeks ago, loud and clear, accelerating to autonomous is presented there not as an option, but as a must to get through the down cycle. We're under this pressure, but we do have this obligation to look at responsible AI. How do we make sure that the decisions made by the machine, that we do have a human being at the end who keeps the accountability?
This is very hard because when you say autonomous, it's like discovery. So it's like we authorize AI to go through it. And so, for example, if I ask him how much is that, and it gives a result, I do have the authority still to check yes or no, to decide yes. How can I check if the data which comes out is correct? I was preparing for a conference. I was kind of creating I wanted to show one diagram of some data. And I was doing research together with AI. And I knew that if I had to do that job, I would take me like 2 months to prepare that diagram because I had to read like 20, 30 articles. So with AI, we read the articles together. He gave me the insights and I was happy. And then I was thinking, okay, how the hell I know if this is correct? So in order to be able to state it's correct, I would have to read all the 20 articles retrospectively to make sure that it was the conclusion was correct. And when Vinay, you said, can we trust AI? I believe in the future, the question is not whether we can trust AI, whether we can afford not to trust AI, because we don't have 2000 years to reverse engineer a decision which was made by 2 million of calculations. I don't have that time. So that will be a very difficult moment of how we can really build the trust with AI. And it's not on AI, it's not one thing general. It's like several vendors, several technologies. So it will be an evolution of collaboration between providers and business owners. And sooner or later, we will see if somebody is not trustworthy, we will skip it. And if we have a good collaboration with somebody who was delivering trustworthy results, then we go on. But the challenge, final thought on this, I can raise the challenge higher because when I mentioned multimodal AIs, it's even more harder to decode which AI because we say that we have a multi-layer of AI technologies combined in a solution, and then the outcome comes out, and how the hell you will know who was doing wrong at one point? This is excellent challenge. It's yeah. I'm a bit worried.
Okay, I'll come to the closed loop control in a minute, but before going there, Vinay, if I build on what Achilles is mentioning here is we have to trust that there is this notion of trust but verify. We don't just want to go in blindly. Do you have examples of those million-dollar procurement decisions where it's the machine generating the proposal? How is that received? How is that handled?
So to directly answer your question, I think that trust level has not yet been built, right? Even though we have our systems people and systems teams who basically come up with new and new examples and use cases and robustness of the model. They show us all these metrics saying our model is so robust and you can go ahead and start trusting the decision. I think at least commercially that trust has not yet come. And so what we've basically tried to do now is instead of going at those big strategic decisions, we have tried to implement it at lower levels, at let's say more non-strategic decision making. Let's say it's a low value purchase order, or it's a low value decision about an inventory, or it's just managing your tail spend, things like that. So we've been trying to basically take care of the confidence from there, and then maybe in a few months time or maybe a couple of years time, we reach to a level where even the serious and the more strategic decisions are then placed on AI. And then the second part again is more the most crucial part is basically uh, the clarity around data, right? How valuable is your data? Now, again, from a supply chain perspective, you have data coming from different nodes in the supply chain. You have data coming from a warehouse management system. You have data coming from the procurement. You have data coming from operations, from the transportation, from your shipping lines. Now, we are basically reliant on different vendors who supply these different technologies to us. So there is not one unified technology. Now, different technologies have different levels of maturity and AI and systems and how they use it. So the data also that comes out from these systems is of varying degrees. So how do you unify this? And how do you trust which one is correct and which one is not correct? When let's say you want to build an analytics layer on top of all the systems, which basically gives you a real-time dashboard, right? This is your purchase order, this is your delivery, this is your shipping line. But again, the question comes about the clarity of the data, the credibility of data. I think that's a problem we're facing.
Absolutely.
Vinay, you say we are still dating with AI, no?
Sorry,
we're still dating, yes.
We are still
Well,
dating with
but
AI, whether we can build the trust with
it's
it.
the honeymoon
But
phase. It's Achilles, if you bridge to Linde's case, there we're talking about closed loop control. If I would be a panel operator at Linde, Thomas, can I say, hey, it wasn't me, it's the machine who took the decision?
Yeah, and I think this is Michelle, this is the dilemma a little bit. I mean, let's say, I think we all agree that unless we take the human being out of the loop, we will not do a step change in productivity or profitability, whatever it is. However, as long as we don't trust the AI, we will not be able to do there. And unless we do it, we will never get the trust. And I think I have an example. So we are supplying a large site in the middle of Germany with hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen, oxygen is a process gas. So it's something that is quite critical for the site. And the site has been operating at a very low efficiency because the operators were terrified by, if we make any mistake, the site will shut down. And I've seen it how 60 or 70 flares went on within 5 minutes, and six minutes later we had the board of the company in the control room. So we have a situation where humans are super terrified, and I think, Vinay, it's what we did is exactly what you said. Is we said, okay, let's start with a journey. So rather than trying to maximize the efficiency, let's concentrate on a solid, robust, smooth running of the plant. And so we try to win the humans by showing that, in principle, let's say on a normal road, no turns, you basically run with less disruption. And then it was a kind of an iterative process where we said, so now you're running much more smooth than before when you had the classical control. How about going a little bit faster? Or how about going a little bit more close to the stability limit? And the funny thing is, we let the speed of that acceleration determined by the operators. We said, look, you tell us, can we do another step? Can we accelerate the speed a little bit? And we will only do that if you tell us you feel comfortable. And that process was quite successful. So at the end, the site had a 10% higher product yield than before. So you can see how terrible they were running before. And the speed with which we approached this higher profitability and efficiency limit was determined by the humans who said, let me do a small step, wait for a week or two. If I feel comfortable, go more. So I think, Vinay, exactly what you're suggesting is take the less risky things first, build trust, do the next step. So and if you do that too fast, and I have a couple of things where I get quite a big pushback because they said, look, Thomas, this step, we don't want to do it. Please get out. And don't terrify them, because I think once you fail, you basically start from square one.
Thomas, we don't have time to explore, but I have a question: is this really good enough? The speed is good enough? Maybe not. So if you need to go if we see, say, we need to go to the Mars, so maybe we need to trust AI more. I would rather trust AI taking me to Mars than a human captain, for example.
Me too.
I don't know if the speed is enough.
But
Yeah.
of course, what I think is we can go on an exponential journey. So build trust slow in the beginning and then accelerate the speed. So, but my personal opinion is, I mean, we need to build this initial thing, this aha moment where I say actually it does the right thing, and then typically the humans, at least that I know, are more willing to take bigger risks, or maybe we go to moon first and then we go to Mars.
And I'm getting a signal here that we're coming to the end of our time commitment. If I try to summarize the discussion that we've been having here, so for sure, well, we wouldn't be on the panel if we didn't see the value of accelerating this AI journey. And we got a very broad set of opportunities to go after within the plant itself, all the way to the full supply chain. And if you look at how to get there, one of the key messages is we see that technology is maturing, and what we can do now with AI is something we couldn't do 5-10 years ago. We still have our data challenge and our data to make sure we manage that, and we had some solutions around that. The dating example, I'm saying, hey, we got a new partner here in town. In the Q&A, other people compare it to a new hire. Sometimes in ExxonMobil we think about a summer intern. It's somebody. It's enabling capacity that need to be supervised and guided from close by, which links to that notion of start small, make sure you build confidence, and you learn how to manage. And to close out, I'll share one example in ExxonMobil, where last week, and I'm not going to share names. I'm not going to share names to the audience, but it's an executive sponsor who was introducing. He said, "Hey, Michel, I understand you're moving forward. I understand we need to do this as ExxonMobil, but I'm not comfortable. And let's do this together with a very close interaction to make sure we build that confidence." And for me, I thought it was very, very revealing. I'm going to thank you all. Thank you all for the great discussion. I learned a lot. I hope the audience too. And I'll pass over to Adam and the team to carry us forward.
Yeah, thanks, Michel. That was really interesting, quite granular. You went into some real detail. It was really good to see so many different perspectives, because I think Thomas was really interesting, because he came out and said, "Look, we've had a meeting on this. People don't want to do it," and I think that was really refreshing to hear anyway. And I think that's a lot of the mentality issues around AI probably evolves around this. So it was really good to get that as a bit of a life example. But equally, it was good to see what Achilles said, Sophia, Vinay in particular as well, about trusting AI and what you need to do to trust AI. Because at some point, I think you need to get past that journey of, okay, we know AI is scary, we know it needs to be regulated, but we need to take that jump. So really thought-provoking discussion.